Hello, welcome to So Much Sewing. My name is Catherine. This channel is all about my home sewing adventures. So if you are as obsessed with sewing as I am, I hope you'll stick around. If you are new here, by the end of this video, I would love it if you would please have subscribed, liked, and hit the notification bell. That would be amazing. Thank you so much. Today, the eagle-eyed amongst you, if you have watched me before, will recognize this fabric and will know that I've been talking about making this for a very long time. Well, I've made it and I absolutely love it. What this is now, I don't know if they're herons, storks, flamingos. I don't know what they are. There's some kind of bird on this viscose. It's kind of almost like a peached finish. I got this fabric a long time ago and I can't remember if it was from the fabric store or Draper's in New Zealand here, but it was quite a few years ago, so it's not around anymore. What did I have? 3.5 meters, I think, and it just sat in my stash for the longest time. I loved it so much that I didn't want to cut into it and ruin it. You know, that fear that we all have of our precious fabrics that we need to get over. We need to make our precious fabrics into a precious garment, and this is what I've done finally. So this is the oversized shirt by the assembly line. But what I did is you can get an extension pack for that shirt. It's got this exaggerated 70s pointed collar. There's a version that is kind of like your traditional mandarin or granddad shirt collar, but it's got a tab and a button on it over here. There's that. There's a Peter Pan collar, and there's a wingtip, like a tuxedo version, and that is the version that I made previously. I'll show you a picture of that. But this time I wanted to put the pointed collar on it, and I also wanted to mesh it and put these lovely sleeves from the Ashling blouse from Papercut Patterns. So that's what I did. I put this gorgeous sleeve on it. I put the 70s pointy collar on it, and I extended the shirt. The shirt is quite sort of long anyway. You'll see from the stock images that it's anywhere from sort of mid-thigh down to sort of just above the knee, depending, you know, on how tall you are. And you'll see in the linen version that I made previously that it is quite, you know, just sort of almost knee length on me. But this time I extended it way down to around about my ankles. I had these buttons that I got from a market when I was in Dunedin visiting my brother quite, you know, many months ago. I bought a whole bunch of little packets of baggies of buttons, not knowing what I was going to be doing with them. But these ones, the colour, really, I don't think you get a better colour for this shirt. But I did have a few little issues making this, as you know. I mean, no make goes smoothly, does it? Well, not many makes go smoothly. The collar went on really nicely. They've got great instructions for doing the collars, and I found that this, you know, this was easy to construct. There is a yoke on the back with a little, did I put it on? Yeah, with a little hang hook there. So there's got a yoke on the back. We're used to doing the burrito method for our yokes these days, but this is the kind of, you know, the old-fashioned way where you just, on the inside, you just press under the bottom of the yoke, and then press it under and sew it down. And that's what I did on my linen version. But on this version, I found a tutorial. Now, who was it by? So Essential. Lucy from So Essential did an amazing burrito method tutorial. And I had looked at other tutorials and tried to figure it out previously, but it was all too head scratchy. But Lucy from So Essential, the most amazing burrito method tutorial you could ever find. So I followed that and I did the burrito method on the back, which came out beautifully. What did I do? To get the sleeve, I just oh yes, now it's all coming back to me. So let me actually get the pattern pieces so I can show you. So yes, now that it's all coming back to me, I remember that there was much jiggery pokery with the sleeves. So here is the sleeve for Papercut patterns, and here's the sleeve for the assembly line. So, you know, pretty standard looking sleeves. What I did was, because I was making the assembly line shirt, I wanted to keep this part of the assembly line shirt intact so that it would fit into my arm's eye properly. So I just folded down the top part of the Papercut Patterns shirt and laid it on top. I'm making a bit of a hash of this, but I'm sure you understand where I'm going with this. Laid it on top and then folded up the bottom of the assembly line shirt so that I had, you know, the shaping, everything right for the cuff on the Papercut Ashling. So that was all well and good. I cut the sleeves out. I had them cut out. I hadn't put in any of the notches yet, but I had it all cut out. So it was cut out with the top of the oversized shirt, arm's eye, and the bottom of the Ashling cuff. I had a bit of a panic at one point because I thought I had lost the frill pattern piece for this part of it. So I was hunting everywhere. I couldn't find the pattern piece for the frill. So what I did was I looked at the layout pictures in the instructions for the Papercut Patterns Ashling top. Let me get those instructions for you. So on this pattern, one of the options you can have is a frill collar around the collar as well, which is not what I had chosen to do, but just to give you context, here we go. So there is, on this version here, there is a frill around the collar as well as a frill around the cuff. So I thought I had lost that frill cuff piece. So I looked at these instructions here, the layout of the, how to lay out the pieces, and I could see that the frill cuff 12 in relation to the collar frill, which is 8, which I knew I had that. I could see the size difference between these two. And my husband, who's an engineer, helped me figure out the percentage of how much bigger the frill cuff for the sleeve was than the frill for the collar. And we worked it out, whatever the percentage was, and so I cut out my fabric accordingly. So anyway, long story short, there was faffing. There was much faffing, but I cut out new collar piece, which incidentally, I did find my actual cuff piece. Sorry, I think I said collar previously, but I did actually find the correct pattern piece. I'd already cut it out in this fabric. Anyway, so I did eventually find this cuff piece, and I found that we had measured correctly. We had done our calculations correctly. We had scaled up the collar frill perfectly. It honestly perfectly matched the size of this cuff frill. However, I cut my cuff frill on the fold. So this here, instead of being that long, actually turned out to be twice that length. So my frill is twice the frilliness of the way it should be. So that was kind of funny. However, I love it. It turned out beautifully. What else? Oh, let me tell you, I did this fabric frayed like the dickens. There was lots of fraying. And oh, there's a piece of thread there actually. And so I had to do quite a lot of trimming on the inside. Because there was double the amount of frill, it was really gathered so densely, and it was hard to sort of sew it to this little tab piece here. It was hard to do that because it was packed so densely with frills. So that was a little bit of a challenge, but I got that sorted, got it done, obviously. And then I had all these frayed bits sticking out from there. So I was carefully going through my little scissors, snipping off all those frayed bits and taking out the gathering thread and what have you, and snip, 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 snip into my fabric. Yes, I did that. I snipped into my fabric. So I made a little cut, and I've lost it now. Where's it gone? Oh, here it is. I have repaired it, obviously very well, because I couldn't find it. Well, not that well, but I just had to do some sewing. I think I did it by hand just to sort of close off those edges, because the fabric frays so badly. I knew that, you know, it was going to fray. So this may not last. I don't know if it will last or not. But so I just kind of did a bit of a repair to that. So that was disappointing. The other thing that happened was when I made my linen version, the buttonholes just went boom, 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 boom. They were brilliant. With my machine, I very often have to do 1 or 2 buttonholes, give the machine a rest. Do 1 or 2 buttonholes, give the machine a rest, because it often only just gives me 2 or 3 buttonholes that turn out well, and then the next one turns out badly. It shortens the buttonhole. It doesn't move on, you know, so it's going over and over and over in the same place. You know, something usually happens with the buttonhole on my machine. So I normally can only sort of do, you know, 2 or maybe 3 maximum buttonholes in one go, give it a rest, turn the machine off, do all that sort of stuff, get back into it. But on my linen version, they just went beautifully, one buttonhole after the other. There were no issues whatsoever. So I just did them all in one go, which is kind of unheard of for when I do sewing anyway. But with this shirt, and I think it's because the fabric is so floppy. There is interfacing in here. I have interfaced it, but it's very lightweight fabric, and I don't think my machine liked it. And so I only got 2 or 3 buttonholes out of it at a time, which was okay. I persevered, I managed, I was very patient and calm. Not one swear word, not one outburst. I was patient and calm. Then it came to do the buttonholes on the cuffs here. And I just couldn't do them. I couldn't do them. I tried, and I've had to unpick several buttonholes on this delicate fabric that frays a lot. So there were several buttonholes that I did unpick and have to do again. On the cuff, here's an example here. I started doing a buttonhole and I could tell this one wasn't going well. So there was no way, because it was on the white piece of the pattern here, there was no way that I was going to try and complete the buttonhole, knowing that it probably wasn't going to work out, and that I would probably have to unpick it. I just thought with it being on that white part, no way, it would stick out like dogs, you knows what. So in the end, what I decided to do was to sew snaps, little snaps on to do the cuff up. And then I sewed on this button here. I talked about putting these buttons on the dress, you know, ages ago in a previous video, but I decided against that because they are teeny tiny. I love them, but they're red and this is pink and they're teeny tiny, but I just think that they work quite nicely on the cuff. They give a little pop of little something. So I've just had to leave that there. I could try and unpick it, but I haven't had the fortitude to do that just yet. I've worn this a couple of times. Nobody's noticed. I've had great comments about how they love the shirt. So, you know, I may just leave well enough alone and, you know, just forget about that. But going back to the sleeve, I forgot. I got sidetracked. Going back to the sleeve. So we've got the sleeve cut out. It's got the head of the assembly line oversized shirt to fit into the arm's eye. And on the bottom, it's got the Papercut Patterns Ashling blouse. Perfect. Cut the sleeve out. Haven't done any notches yet, but I've cut the sleeve out, ready to go. It was actually after a video I made, and when I said I wasn't feeling well, I wasn't feeling up to much. Sarah was with me. We did a video together, and I said I wasn't feeling well. But after we finished filming and after Sarah left, I went into my sewing room to start working on this. So I picked up my sleeve, realised that I hadn't done the notches on it. I also hadn't done this slit here, which is the slit for the cuff here. You have to cut a slit in your pattern. And here that is here. So that's what I did. I cut my notches in. There's obviously, as usual, 2 notches for the back of the sleeve, 1 notch for the front of the sleeve, and I cut the slit. I marked this onto my fabric and I cut the slit on my fabric. What had I not taken into consideration? What do you notice about these sleeve heads? What's the thing that is glaringly obvious? 2 notches there, 1 notch there, 1 notch there, 2 notches there. I put the notches in the sleeve on the wrong sides. Does that make sense? So, and this slit here on the Papercut Ashling is on that side, which is on the back, and on this pattern the slit is there where the 2 notches are for the back. So to see what I'm trying to explain badly, I put my slit for the cuff on what was the front of this pattern. You see that the slit is on the back side, which is where it's supposed to go. It was on that side there, but because I'd laid the 2 pieces over the top and I wasn't feeling well, I didn't, you know, quite get to grips with what was going on there. If I had put my sleeve into the shirt correctly with the 2 notches on the back for the back, then this cuff piece would have been around the front here. So I then had to sort of play jiggery-pokery and pull. I made it work. I changed because, you know, the top of the sleeve head, they're different. So you can see the difference between them. So I just had to try and, I think I ended up shortening the sleeve by just a tad. I made it work. I didn't know if it was going to work, but I made it work. I think that the sleeve went in fine. There's no dramas, there's no issues, but it was just funny. a reasonable amount of this didn't go easily, but oh my gosh, I love this so much. I really absolutely adore it. I'm so glad that I mashed the two patterns together. I'm so glad that I made it in this fabric. I just love, 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 love everything about it. So I'm no amazing technically minded seamstress. I'm just someone who's been sewing at home, you know, for a number of years. I started when I was 12 years old or maybe 11 years old in home economics at school. There's been huge periods of my life where I haven't sewn at all for years and years, and then I've taken it up again. So I took up sewing again about 5 years ago, and I've been sewing constantly non-stop ever since. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't be intimidated. If you really have got an idea in your head that you want to try and mash two patterns together, give it a go. If you've made a number of garments and you can turn out a successful garment, then give it a go. You've got nothing to lose. Use some fabric that you're not, you know, totally 100% in love with. I was in love with this fabric, but I knew I could pretty much make it work. So I wasn't too worried about using this. I had just made it previously in my linen version. I was comfortable that I could make it work. But if you're not 100% sure you can make it work, just use a fabric that you're not in love with. Doesn't matter if it doesn't turn out. Or make a toile, and a toile that you can't wear out of calico or some nasty old fabric that you've got in your stash, or mash several scraps of fabric together to make up the pattern just to see if it works. But give it a go. If you've got the mindset, if you really love the idea of putting two patterns together and you're sure you can make it work and you want to give it a go, give it a go. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you might just end up with an amazing piece that you love, 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 and you won't regret it. So that's all I have to talk to you about today. I have been wanting to do this video for weeks because this has been made for weeks and I've worn it a few times, at least twice already. But other things have been cropping up and I haven't been able to get it filmed. So I'm glad that I filmed it now. I'm glad you're going to get to see this amazing shirt. I hope you love it as much as I do. And I hope that I will see you again next week when I will show you something else. I know not what. See you later.